Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. My name is Peggy George, and I am so excited to welcome you to this great presentation by Raymond, who is with New York University in Shanghai. He's the Reference and Research Services Librarian. I'm so glad he's offering this session for us today, and it's entitled Museums Without Walls, Delivering Virtual Museum Talks as an Outreach Program. So during this session, we're excited to learn about new ways to create and deliver virtual museum programs that will help to raise awareness of museums' collections, exhibitions, and mission. So with that, I want to just take a moment to say a special thank you to the sponsors for this conference. It's so exciting to have this conference, and it wouldn't be possible for it to be free if we didn't have these wonderful sponsors. So huge thanks to the MNC.org Center for Future of Museums, and definitely to Blackboard Collaborate and Steve Hargadon's Learning Revolution Project. And you're going to get really familiar with this routine because at the beginning of every session, we start with placing ourselves on the map so we can see where all of you are located. So if you'll just take a minute to double click on that star that's just to the left of your whiteboard, and then click on the map to show us where you're located. And also, would you please type it in the chat, because those stars cover entire states, and we love knowing where you're from. Also, if your star doesn't go right where you want it, you can just click and drag it to the right place. Sometimes we end up in the ocean somewhere and can't figure out how to get it out of there, but you can definitely drag it around till you're happy with where it is. It is so awesome to see all of the stars from an international audience. It is great to be here with all of you. You're doing a terrific job. Good job. All right. And feel free to continue posting in the chat both your location and any comments or questions you have as we go along. And we're going to move right on because we don't want to miss a moment. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Ray.
Thank you, Peggy. Can everybody hear me? I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me. I guess you can just type in the chat box. Okay, thank you all very much for joining. Again, I'd like to thank Peggy for the introductions. And so it's really wonderful to be invited to be speaking for this inaugural conference, Future Museums, and I hope all of you are learning a lot of interesting and innovative programs, ideas, services to promote your museums or to collaborate. And so this is really a great opportunity to share ideas and to learn from one another. And it's great to see that everyone is coming from all over the country and the world, literally. And I'm coming from Shanghai, China right now, and it's an honor to be speaking to everybody in various institutions that I've recognized here. And so without further ado, I'm just going to begin my presentation. And so it's basically a project that I just started doing. So currently I'm based in NYU Shanghai. And just a little bit about myself to give you some perspective. I'm a librarian, not a museum curator, specialist, or programmer. I don't have that kind of background or training like almost all of you do. However, I do have an interest in outreach, in virtual services, in programming, and so forth, which is very similar, right, with libraries and museums and how they promote their collections, their exhibitions, their programs, and so forth. So as I said, I am based in NYU, the university, but it's a new global university in Shanghai, China, just opened last year. And so one of the things I am used to doing, because prior to my work at Shanghai, I was a librarian at the New York Public Library, the main building at 42nd Street and Fifth Avenue, the one with the lions, the one that people might call the New York Public Museum because it looked like a museum. And I did a lot of programming and outreach and support. So I'm very familiar with outreach and all that and so forth. So what I did for this program, it's very interesting. It's a side project. I've been working with the Dorot Inc., University Without Walls, which I'll explain in a bit. And so basically I've been giving lectures online and showcasing some of our interesting museums that's going on in China to retired seniors, seniors who are disabled, the elderly, basically promoting the museum, right? And I don't work in these museums, but I visit them in my travel blog, as it was mentioned. So just a little backstory with Dorot Inc., University Without Walls. It's a nonprofit social service located in Manhattan, New York, and they provide a wide range of services for seniors. So that also includes lifelong learning opportunities, including phone lectures or virtual lectures. In this case, how I was doing it, which you all hear more later. And so basically the Dorot is a partnership with me and also other speakers that they are able to engage with, people who have expertise, people who have special knowledge and so forth, to work with them to create telephone conference calls that really work with limited mobility, the people who are unable to visit sites and areas, get out of their homes, but to be engaged with the speakers. So there are a group of classes, support groups, and led by all kinds of professionals and volunteers. So I will disclose this. I am a volunteer. So I've given about 5 lectures already, and each lecture is about an hour each. And it's on different subjects. And so we're going to get into that today. So the outreach services in museums. This is the logistics of what I've been doing. So partnering with a nonprofit like University Without Borders, which is a program within the Dorot, to create a teaching framework to show, engage, and discuss cultural history through the lens of museum exhibitions, collections, and sites. So once a week, I create and facilitate an online lecture. About 5 or 6 people attend. It's not necessarily about the quantity of people attending. It really, I think initially I had about 3 people, and it just doubled, right, over the course of weeks. And then they come from Florida, Massachusetts, New York, different parts of the country, and they are just like everybody here from different parts of the world, as well as in America. Thank you, Peggy. So some of them are former teachers, others used to work for government employees, some of them, they have their businesses, and so forth. So to create such a program, I think for this audience, you have to consider 2 main points. Can a virtual museum tour or program be as engaging as a real one? Which is to say, can something that I'm innovating, can replicate the same kind of experience as if people were actually there? It's hard to say. I mean, there are different standards to follow. And the other main question is, what technical challenges do users of a virtual environment encounter? So we're going to go over some of that today, but for the most part, I think I'm going to explain the logistics of the program so you get to see what the seniors explored. So, I would talk about using photography and images. They use a program called Video. It's a very streamless, very easy tool. It was free for me, and I think it cost Dorot to implement it, but I believe it's really cost effective, and we'll talk more about that soon. So this is an image of Shanghai in the 1920s. just to give you some perspective and to give them an idea of what it looks like. And of course, I always ask, has anyone been to China before? And none of them have been to China. So it's exciting for them to sort of see history, right there and be part of it. And now this is Shanghai today. So this is the Shanghai that I'm used to. It's cosmopolitan. It grew. So many urban developments happened throughout the century, and now it's the largest city in the world. There's about 25 million people living in the city, and it's continuously expanding. It's the biggest city in China, and it's the biggest one in the world, according to various statistical population sources. So if you've never been to Shanghai, I encourage you to visit. It is about a 15-hour flight from the United States, which I tell the seniors. Of course, once they hear that, they kind of want to just watch the lecture. So this is the blog that I talk about. You can follow me at raypun101.tumblr.com, which Peggy had typed so generously. And this is my travel blog. So basically, I use my travel blog as a teaching tool, and it's a Tumblr site. So I use it to show them all the museums that I've been to and give them an idea of the collections, the exhibits that I've encountered. And usually it's about my travel going on in Asia. So here, just again, using Tumblr as a tool to display images easily. And all parts of China. I've been to Southeast Asia, including Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, and I just started working in NYU Shanghai since November. And I do occasionally fly back to the US for business work, so it's been pretty busy. And like for instance, I talk about the modernity of China, so I show them this mall. This is a famous mall in China. It's well known. It's to connect the ancient world to modern urban development, right? It's cosmopolitan. China isn't what it looks like, the stereotypes that's been given in Hollywood, all this like kung fu dragons and all that stuff. It's not that. It's really well developed, right? According to these images, and especially in Shanghai. So here's another example of a mall, same mall that's about showcasing China's wealth and prosperity. And then there's also what platform do I use for my virtual trips? Sorry, could you elaborate, Peggy? I'm just thinking of two different ways of answering it, but okay. So what? Thanks for clarifying. What happens is Dorot provides a video. It's called video, VIDYO, and I'll explain that in a second. They actually have the subscriptions, and then they give me the access as the speaker. And for instance, this is an interesting image. It's about Chinese cultural groups. Of course, there are so many ethnic groups. We have Tibetans, we have Uyghurs, we have the Han. We have different groups, right? And there's also a group of North Koreans living in China because of the relationship. So we talk about different groups, ethnic groups, including this performance that I went to a North Korean restaurant. And so you can see the performance. And we're really, I believe that they are from North Korea. So it's really interesting to talk about that with these seniors who are very savvy. They read the news, they watch it every day, and they know exactly what's going on, even if they don't even step outside. And then we talk about food. So food is a big discussion because there's a lot of myths, a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of cultural differences. So sometimes they might ask, do you eat dogs? Do you eat cats? What kind of animals do you eat? Like based on what they've heard, what they've seen. So it's good to give this kind of lecture, cultural lecture, to rectify their understanding, give them a cultural insight. Why maybe some parts of China they do eat dogs, but it's been yes, that is hot pot. It's actually a famous famous kind of, I wouldn't say cuisine, but it's just a way of eating, right? You just boil everything, you just put everything together in spices. And for the most part, it's interesting to sort of give them ideas that, discussions to show them that, well, we're culturally different, but just to understand that, yes, some parts do eat dogs, but not everybody in China eats dogs. You can't find dogs in that mall you just saw, so forth. Yeah, it does look delicious. It's really, you can put in different spices or you can make it bland. It's just boiling water and then you just put in raw vegetables and meat. So this is the museum part. So we talk about artwork, calligraphy. Yes, that's right. There are always misunderstandings. So they ask me if I ate dogs, and I haven't. But it's funny that they assume that it's just a general thing going on. So as far as the calligraphy goes, this is different artworks to get into them to start thinking about cultural and art history and exhibits in Chinese museums. And then there's an interesting take, especially this part, the Jews of Shanghai Museum. It just, here's a little history for all of you. During World War II, prior to the Japanese invasion of Shanghai, China in the 40s, during, I guess, when the Nazis really started taking over, a lot of Jews fled the country, fled Europe to go to Shanghai because Shanghai was the only port city that allowed people to enter without visas. So that was a major history that a lot of people didn't know. And because of that, a lot of Jews fled Germany, Poland, to come to Shanghai to live, to make a community out of it. And there's now a Jewish museum about Jews living in Shanghai. It's very, very interesting. The community right now isn't as strong as it was 60, 70 years ago. However, there's still a lot of remnants. And a lot of the seniors, they're very interested in this cultural history, right? Because they get to understand that it used to be a very global time, too. And then we also include travels around the world. One of the talks is about contemporary China. So without talking to contemporary China, you also have to talk about Taiwan, which can be very tricky to talk about because of the history. So we get into the geopolitics of China's history, right? We get into why, what happened between the split, right? And these are just images from Taiwan. They're actually for Chiang Kai-shek's memorial. He sort of found Taiwan at the time, and this is a memorial in his honor. And we talk about Taiwanese politics a little bit. And then this is the most interesting part, right? We talk about China's history of the Cultural Revolution, right? And this is still, in some sense, very sensitive. However, it's still history. So these are images from the Propaganda Art Museum in Shanghai. So this is the most interesting part. Basically, I show these images, and then we get into a discussion, right? So then they see, for instance, you might see in the centerpiece an African-American man holding his hand up. That's a poster that talks about civil rights solidarity between civil rights movements that's going on in America during the 60s and the Cultural Revolution that led to the people's liberation, right? So if, for those of you who are not familiar with modern Chinese history, the Cultural Revolution was led by Mao Zedong, who you see in these pictures wearing a hat, sort of standing in a pose. There are a couple of images in the slide. And he basically led the revolution to change China, to make it just sort of go back to the core foundations of China, getting rid of things that are very imperialistic, very damaging to its history, to its culture, and sort of preserve its natural way. And basically, he changed China to make it extraordinarily governmental-oriented, where the people serve the government and the government supports the people. Very communist, socialist-driven. That's been inspired by Stalin. Just a little information. And once he passed away in 1976, the revolution faded, and then we enter a new phase where China slowly rises with different leaderships and different philosophies. So when we get into the Cultural Revolution, we talk about these posters. We talk about what they mean and what they represent, and how they represent history in China. And of course, these posters don't really exist anymore. I mean, they're just for show. And however, the previous generations, they do see these, they do remember these, and it's history. And then this is just an example of using video to a desktop to virtually present everybody. So I'm at the corner right hand, but these are some of the attendees, and then some of the slides I do use Prezi in addition to Tumblr, basically to demonstrate, engagement, discussion, try to get people to start thinking about China in the beginning, and then we get into more discussions. It's a really great tool. I don't know exactly the cost behind it, but I do know that it worked really well for us. So here are some of the results, just to let you know. Of course, they're all positively receptive, educational, and informative to anybody who attends, anyone who can make it to the session, usually the seniors. And in some way, I'm branding the speaker, which is important. If the speaker is also relatively connected to the museums, which can be really, really super. So if you create some sort of partnership in that sense and have your specialists to speak, that's a good way. And Prezi is a free educational tool. That's a good point. Prezi is a very advanced, I would say, advanced PowerPoint can get advanced than PowerPoint. So additionally, you can also promote resources and talk about new programs that work well by using these kinds of outreach collaborations. You're branding the University Without Walls program. That's really Dorot, supporting their initiative, bringing their name out there, because these are people from all over the country. They're not necessarily from New York. Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't upload, but it's okay though. Sometimes it's okay to use different tools, because I've seen a lot of people use Prezi, and some people use it differently and in a really kind of busy way. But anyway, the branding of the university is also a University Without Walls program through Dorot is good for them, because they're just a nonprofit engine that will be able to get more supporters that way, and it's free. So in that way, it's a social service agency, as I had mentioned earlier. So it's also supporting cultural and global dialogues concerning today's issues. This is more of a theoretical component of the lectures. Basically, it's to spark conversations, engagement, and then they've asked things about China and Japan. How did China and Japan get so fierce in discontent in today's politics? And then we get into one of the museums we talked about is in Nanjing, one of the massacre memorial. For those of you who are not familiar with that World War II history in Asia, during the 40s, so I mentioned the Jews were living in Shanghai, right? However, the Japanese came over later and then put them in ghetto communities, very different from the Nazis' communities, but the Japanese still placed them in ghettos, right? And so for the Chinese, they treated them differently, specifically in Nanjing, where it's very controversial right now, whether there's 300,000 people were massacred within weeks, innocent Chinese people, and the memorial in Nanjing, which is very close to Shanghai, represents the lives of these victims and sort of educate people about what's going on, what happened, so forth. So then we get into this discussion of, well, why is Japan and China having heated discussions about just the politics? And that explains, the history explains it. So then we also talk about the food, as I mentioned, and also the development of rising China, talking about the specific museums, as I had mentioned, including the Jews of Shanghai. So virtual settings may be one alternative solution to create lively lecture programs. So if you have enough staff to create some sort of outreach support to focus on a specific exhibition or a collection, and it's easily doable, right? You just take a few pictures and you put them in a slide. You can actually show a lot of meaningful images and have a lot of discussions to raise the museum's awareness, brand mission, and then promote it. So here are some of the best practices for outreach services. Yes, that's right, Peggy. Am I the presenter or the moderator? Angela, if you're asking if me, then I guess I'm the presenter. Peggy is the moderator. I wanted to mention just a few points that could help all of you, give you some ideas on best practices for outreach services. So digital resources, as I mentioned, you can use social media tool like Tumblr, Pinterest, WordPress, Dippity, or Omeka. You know, they're all free, and some of them have built-in online exhibition tools, right? So meaning you can actually show collections on a easily sensible interface, a website that's designed to promote images, visual literacy, objects, art, so forth, and they're free. If you want to expand them, of course, you do have to pay a certain fee. There's also engaging your audience, creating discussion questions, or generate topics of interest specific to your groups. So what that means is you have to focus on topics that interest them, of course. Who are your targets? Who are your audience? So in this case, the people I spoke to, basically, oh, I'm sorry if you're having audio problem. Let's see. Hopefully it'll be fine later. The people that I represent, sort of speak, are people who have never been to China, so I have to go from scratch. Like China 101, kind of focus on what their research or what their leisure interests are, and so forth, right? Outreach. This is really important because you can collaborate with universities, Without Walls, retirement centers, YMCA, public libraries, where I used to come from, that have access to mobile devices, or some sort of agency, right? And then form some sort of virtual program to promote your collections and exhibits, just the way I'm doing it. And so the other thing is preparations. Be prepared to facilitate and focus on your topic, because you will be having a lot of interruptions, because when people have issues, when there's technology, there's going to be issues. For instance, it wasn't easy. We start at 10, but we never actually start at 10. We start around 10:15. And because of the technology, the connections, anything that involves with that. So be prepared for those kinds of challenges. But of course, you know, it's all about facilitating and focusing on your topic without getting distracted. Some people, when you present to them, they might just have questions they want to ask, and then it might throw you off, and you can just answer them and then focus, as you had seen in the images. Take advantage of globalization. No, what I do is, Peggy, thanks for the question. I don't, participants, they don't call in. They usually use their iPads or some sort of computer device. But that's a good question. There is a program that they can call in. I haven't experimented with that because I'm an international line, and that might be expensive. The platform we use is video, which I'll go back in a second. So in addition to the globalization that I had mentioned, people can use Skype, Google Hangout, online meetings to connect. So just to show you again, we use video, and as I said, I am not representative of Dorot. I am not representative of University Without Walls program or video, but this is the program that they use, and this is how I use the screenshots. And it allows you to show this, the desktop at a time. So I want to spend more time with discussions because that's pretty much most of the content I've prepared because it's still relatively new. I've done about 5 to 6 hours of programming with these people, and I think it's grown doubles over time, and I think it's going to continue growing as I figure out new ways to work with them. But I'm willing to entertain some questions if you have any, and whatever you like to ask. Yes, a copy of this will be available, including the recorded session. Thank you all for your time. No, there are other presenters for these talks. Yes, all the sessions are free. Yes, the program is conducted in English. No language barriers, everyone's from America. People love it. They've responded positively and they've continued coming back. Dorot promotes the talk by creating a flyer, which I've attached in the site that you may see in the Future Museum site, and they promote it for me. There has to be a facilitator in order to support the tech setup. Yeah, it is. It's very helpful. Thank you all for your questions. Yes, it's just 1 hour. And she wants to learn about Chinese history too. Well, I've worked with them indirectly, and it's just I've done a lot of presentations. I think because they know me, so there aren't really much training really. What has been one of the most favorite or most compelling questions asked by participants? They asked if they can go to the Great Wall of China. And I said sure, and then we went to images of Great Wall, and then they realized it's too much for them. So then they all laughed. No, they don't actually. They're actually pretty good. They're listening. Other volunteers, they can get in touch with Dorot Inc. I'm not sure about the requirements, but because I knew I worked with them. Do you measure outcomes through a survey, what they've learned, how participating affected participant moods? That gets a little sophisticated because I don't do the survey part. Dorot does that survey, so they let me know. They let me know what are the results, and I gather since they are returning, they do find it positive. But that's a good point. I do hope to do a longer study on this, but it's just different. Sure, you're welcome. Any other questions? Yeah, thanks for your questions. Let me just look at Michelle's first. Do you think that people are as engaged by virtual museums as by the real thing? You know, that's the question that I posed earlier, and I still haven't really figured it out, actually. I think you guys know better than I do, maybe, since you work with museum collections, exhibits, institutions, and sites more than I do. I do want to say that there are challenges that I presented with the technology, but there are a lot of opportunities to engage. It's a different standard. It's like saying, is reading an online book same as an ebook? I mean, ebook same as a physical book? I mean, it's the same, almost the same, but it's still not the same. Different standards. So still very hard to figure out. But I think they're just as engaged by the virtual museums, the ones that I've done, the people that I've spoke to. How do volunteers work with museums to deliver content? Well, this is actually my own travel. I travel to different museums, and I present the exhibits through my travel blog. Thanks for your questions. Thanks. I think maybe in the fall I might talk about Australia, since I'm going there anyway. Like after I come back. Thank you all for coming. Let's stay in touch. Feel free to email me. Thank you, Peggy.